All right, so right now, let's see. I've just been watching the charts lately. I didn't get a full plan of what to go over today, so I think today is going to be a little bit more of a relaxed session. If anyone has anything in it that they want me to go over specifically, let me know in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll go over the typical things such as PRPs, future fibs, normal fibs, maybe some flag patterns. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our trades from the last session on Tuesday. We looked at UCAD. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And all right, so this was our original trade that we had. We had an entry right here at this golden line. Golden lines are always used as entries. That's how I use them at least. And then our first take profit is all the way down here. This is quite a few pips away from current. This is an additional 154 pips. So why do we think that it's going to go so low and not just be a small bounce off, maybe continue in the trend that we have here? That's definitely a possibility. We could see a continuation from this trend. Here, I can maybe I never used the trend tool and the regression trend tool, I think. So if we have a regression trend on this point, let me see if I can make this a little better. Just want to show you what we're looking for on the breakout side. I want this to have the bottom in it. So here we go. So essentially, let me just bring it out even farther and I keep moving it. This is a very rough estimate of what I'm trying to show. Essentially, the price for a while has been moving up and down within this trend. And because of this long-term line here that that Bird found on our Tuesday class, he's actually on the call right now. He found this on Tuesday, which we'll look at. Yep. So essentially what we found was using the magnet tool to be very, very precise. We used the trend extension from this high here to this high as well. And then if you look at where it just hit, there was no bodies, at least on the 4-hour, that broke above this line. So it's a very, very long-term trend line. Just from the first hit to current is 563 days. So that's pretty long-term. And especially for UCAD, UCAD loves long-term trend lines. So especially to see it try that many times to break out and be unsuccessful, that's usually very powerful for a continuation, including the trend line instead of discluding the trend line. So another thing we found really powerful, this happened, I think, after the session. I don't remember if it happened before or after, because I know that Bird and I were talking about this afterwards. There is a double hit right there on the very tops. They're very close to equal. The second one is just a couple micro pips above, just to kill everyone's stop loss essentially. And that's usually what you see happen at the very, very top of a long-term trend. Now, when I said long-term, I do not mean 5 days. I don't mean 1 week. It's usually at least a month. A lot of people don't like to hold trades for that long necessarily, but I do, and it's shown time and time again that that is a really successful way to do it. So looking at a little bit even more current data, it's kind of hard to see because of this this trend tool here. But what we see in this most recent already finished forming candle is that red one there. That's a near perfect doji. It's really, really wide on the wicks. Very, very small body off a strong green candle before it. So I'd be pretty surprised if, oh yeah, we'll look at that next. I'd be very surprised if this candle that's forming now, it has an hour 23 left. I'd be very surprised if it finishes green. It definitely should finish red just based off that doji alone. But Bird just put up, he's saying that the retracement yes. So the retracement right now, as of this candle, is in between the 0.5 and 618. So of course the 618, it would be a little bit more powerful if it actually bounced off of that. But not to worry at all, because I actually did as well. I still have my sell limit there. I haven't gotten rid of it yet. But if we look at where it did hit, where the top of this is, you'll see that right before, again, this is the 4 hour, so these, each and every single one of these wick count. Right here, there's a powerful hit there, as well as there. That makes this a PRP, price reversal point, which adds strength even more to this being a downtrend. So that's very technical. That's something that is very chart specific. What we looked on a lot about, that was weird. We looked at news a lot on the last session. I don't know why I couldn't say that. So let's go ahead and go look at the Forex Factory, because there's a lot of news that happened last week. So let's go to the calendar. And we want to look at last week. What already did happen last week. So, because now, before we're looking at the forecast and previous, now we can look at the actual. And how does that compare? So in particular, I only want to look at, right now at least, I only want to look at US news, because that was the big news events that were happening. Which, as you can see, it only went down by about half because there was so much US news this last week. The biggest things are anything that says Powell on it. Powell is the Federal Reserve chairman. He's one of the most influential people in the world. You can see, I'll just open up all of his. Any of the FOMC ones are big, but his in particular is even bigger. So let's see. So I think it might just be the two. I might be missing one. But let's see. So that's a good question. How quickly does news affect the price? This is kind of weird. It affects it usually slightly before the news happens. It's really weird how that works. I feel like some people can predict the future, but usually you'll see it as, or even a little bit before sometimes news happens. And that's because sometimes people are actually at the events, and if they're being streamed there, they might even have automatic traders that can listen. Oh, but what I mean by an automatic trader is a non-human trader, such as like a program, a robot, or something like that. And they listen for certain key things, and they try to place trades before it even happens. And you'll see that once in a while if you're watching the price. So I didn't watch his speeches, and it's not. It doesn't have any actual data because he wasn't particularly showing, you know, like the CPI or something of that nature where it's hard numbers. It's more he's talking about interest rates. So so we can't really know just from this what he said. However, if we duplicate this tab and we go to the US dollar index, which is the DXY, let's try and see if other people have already told us what they think is what he was saying. Whoops, didn't mean to type the number 2. So on here, this was the second speech was Thursday, and the first was Wednesday. So Wednesday and Thursday. On wait, what day? Just want to make sure I get the dates right. 15 to 14. That's more helpful. Okay, 14th here and 15th here. So as we can see with the DXY, very, very volatile on the 14th and 15th. Lots of movement on both days because Powell was speaking. And then afterwards, we saw that the price ultimately went down on the US dollar. However, we do see the wrong direction doji. We see a hammer there, but it's at the bottom, so that doesn't really mean much. And also the bottom wick didn't even come below the previous wick. But it is on a PRP. It's worth noting, even though it's not that powerful. So with all that being said, we see an overall downtrend from the, again, long-term news, because Powell doesn't speak every single day. So that's cool. Powell doesn't speak every day. He only speaks once in a while. For example, he's not even, I don't think he's speaking this week at all. Yeah. So he's not even speaking this week. One thing to notice about this week is the holiday on Thursday for Thanksgiving. So if you don't want to trade on Thanksgiving, you probably won't miss out on much, most likely. The U.S. banks will be closed, which is the largest bank. No worries if you want to just enjoy your Thanksgiving and not trade that day. So what else can we infer about this recent data since Wednesday? Well, if we are using this Elliott wave from before, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extension, if we say, by the way, this extension was made with a future fib. This was not here before. So if we say this is the 5, I'm gonna move it just a little bit. It's a little bit off. Let's say that the 5 was there. Well, then right now we might be in the ABC. So in the corrective wave. Where is that? Here it is. So right now it might be a corrective wave, or because this is long-term news, it might even be just a downward Elliott wave instead. But most likely, I would expect price to come up to at least there before heading farther down, which I'm just going to place there. That one was placed completely arbitrary. Don't use the C price. But I would be expecting a little bit of a reversal from where it is. It also kind of just looks like it. Let's throw up a fib on there and see if we can get any more confirmations or not. So throwing the Fibonacci on there, that appears to be right on the 78.6. Who remembers how the 78.6 is calculated? Does anyone know? I can tell you guys. That's right. Yep. The square root, you just take the square root of 61.8, which is the golden ratio. And the square root is approximately 78.6, roughly. And that's why we use that. So it's not quite as powerful as the 618 itself, but it is something to note. So because we see the price reversal point, we see the weak doji, a lot of these things, we would assume the US dollar might strengthen in value a little bit upwards pretty soon. What I'm also noticing is this B, which I put as this price reversal point because of these couple points here around that area. It also is on the 0.5, very common for the price to bounce off of, very powerful. So that'd be nice to see it come up just a little bit to the 0.5. That would, and if we saw, say, a doji, or especially if we saw a hammer with the wick touching the 0.5, that'd be really clear indication that's very likely the price, sorry, not the price, the value of DXY, because it's not a price, would go down afterwards, and we'd see a lower C. Again, not necessarily here. I could put it all the way down here. Not necessarily, but so how does that affect UCAD? Well, that is a little bit conflicting information what we have with UCAD, because on UCAD the price already went up a little bit off of this really strong doji here, and because of that we might see price coming up a lot more temporarily on UCAD. I'm still bearish on this one. I still think it's going to go down. However, potentially I could even see it coming all the way up to the 786 if the DXY is going to do what we thought it might do here. That's very possible. So as long as you have your, if you did take this trade, we call this out on Tuesday. If you did take this trade, definitely move your stop loss to a stop profit. But I'd recommend maybe just barely, so that it even could hit that 786, just to let it have a lot of breathing room. We don't want to see that. I would prefer it to either just go down now because that is a powerful doji, or maybe hit the 618 and then bounce off. That would be ideal. That'd be the most powerful. So either that, it's basically, I see three different scenarios that could happen here. One just goes down, that's great. Another one, it goes up to 618, comes down, that's great too. And the third, actually 4 scenarios, it goes up to 786, goes down, that's not so great, that's okay. And then lastly, it just goes up. So even just using, if all those scenarios were equally likely, it's still, that would be a confirmation for the downtrend overall on UCAD. So we're still bearish on it for now. I would not recommend getting out yet if you're already in it. I'm still in it. So let's go ahead. Oh, good. So let's look at another pair. Actually, let's look at the pound. I haven't looked at the pound in a while. So pound dollar. Oh, look at that. That's funny. Right in that box there. So this was a really, really strong candle here. That's huge. That's one single candle on the 4-hour chart. How big is just the body? Let's see. The body of this single candle is 223 pips. That's pretty, that's quite a lot. So that was, I think that was because of the Brexit. That was the other news events that were going on at the same time as Powell was speaking. So right now what I'm seeing with the pound is we're seeing higher lows, but I'm also seeing lower highs as well, and much lower highs than the difference between the lows. So it's basically, let's get out the tool for that, the triangle tool. Let's see how this looks. This was from the previous session. So it would have to be extended quite a lot to cover most of the chart. I think all the bodies of the candles should be covered there. There's some wicks that break out, that's fine. So this is basically, if you zoom out, it's just a long-term flag, is what it appears to be starting to form here. What to look for on GU is, because of this, I'll delete this because it's not that helpful anyways. This giant candle here is fairly significant. Usually when you see a candle that big, it'll go back up to around the 0.5, maybe 618 area, and then continue down is usually what you'll see from that. So if that does happen, if it makes lower lows, that would be breaking out of structure. That would no longer mean that it's in the flag, and it would then be going to a continuation to go down even farther. So what we could do in this scenario is, if you really want to trade this, again, I don't recommend you do this necessarily. It would need more analysis. Basically, if it made a new low of this new low, potentially if it broke that one, at this point in time, it should then be good for like a sell stop of some kind, at least until this 1618 level here, if that's relevant. I'm not sure when I made that one exactly. I think it's from here to here. But even that looks like it's an okay TP1. I'm eyeballing it. Yeah, that's all right. It's 108 pips from there. And that would then mean new lows on the chart as well. So I don't think that'll happen. It's really hard to say at this point. It's a lot of conflicting information, because on one hand, we have the US dollar, which appears to be decreasing in value. However, on the other hand, we also have the pound, which is also decreasing in value. So because these currencies seem to be both having some negative news against it lately, I'd probably suggest staying away from this particular pair. I haven't really heard anything negative at all about AUD, or the Australian dollar. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one versus the US dollar. We can also look at GA, actually. That'd be pretty interesting too. So let's see what happened here. We had a zone, and it came out and bounced off. Oops, didn't mean to move that. What? There we go. So the price broke out in a positive direction from our price reversal point and our zone, and then it had a doji on the very top, and big surprise, it went down afterwards. And then after that, it had another doji that broke, the wick broke into the zone to test it, failed, and that's where we currently are at. So from now, because that was I remember this being a pretty strong price reversal point already, We can look at the last video if you want to see why that is. We would probably expect price to go up from here on AUD USD, and that does that works well with our UCAD trade. If AUD USD goes up, UCAD, because the US dollar is in the opposite places of those, and it's a much bigger currency, but then both the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar should move in opposite directions. And one thing to notice is also, this is basically the opposite of what happened with the Canadian dollar, just recent at least. It temporarily went in the wrong direction from where we think it's going to go. Same with the Canadian dollar, that just happened as well. So this is confluence right here. I don't know why that's there. Overall, we would like it if, so this already broke. It broke this line. So let's move this to be more accurate now. Always want to use the most outstretched point. So from this new line that we have, let's see if we can adjust everything like that a lot more. From this new zone and line, we would not want to see price break this line. Again, if you want to be really on top of things, what you can do is you can add an alert, and you can just say, you can have the default if you want, if you can remember that. Or if you want to be more specific, I would actually recommend saying something, look for sell, just to remind yourself, your future self in the future, to look at that and know what to look for when the alert goes off. So you're not like, okay, it broke, what am I looking for? Because that's not helpful. When it does break, if it does break, then that would be potential for change of direction. It doesn't mean it's not that strong necessarily, but it's just a possibility. Let's go ahead and throw a fib up on the most recent movement. I'm going to turn off the magnet tool first, actually. So for AU, it looks like maybe this wick was trying to hit the 382. That's what it might have been aiming for. But then the buyers reacted and said, hey, that's in our zone, get out of here. And they pushed it up and then transformed it into this is a specific kind of doji. Does anyone know what this kind of doji is called? The green one here that just happened. Who knows what this kind of doji is called? It's a fat doji. It wouldn't be a long leg doji, a fat doji. Yeah, so that is one name for it. It'd be a fat doji or an even body wick doji is essentially what I was looking for. A fat body would also work as well, just because it has a little bit of a fatter body. But if you measure it out, I was eyeballing this. It could be a little bit off. It's 9.3 on the body and 9.3 on the top wick. And it should be a little bit longer on the bottom wick, 9.8. That's exactly what we're looking for. So when it's an even on the top, or essentially the direction it was coming from, so it was going down, so the top wick should be the same size as the body, which it was exactly to the micro pip, the same size. And then the bottom wick can be the same size or just a little bit longer, but not much longer. So we saw that was exactly the case, 9.3 versus 9.8 on the bottom. This is a particular kind of doji. It is valid. It's fairly powerful. It's not nearly the most powerful kind of doji by any means. Smaller bodied ones are more powerful, but because it's so exact and so perfect for that bottom, or sorry, for the body and top wick, we would see that being fairly relevant. So let's make a new chart again. And let's see what happens when we look at the CXY. The CXY is the Canadian dollar index. It's similar to the DXY, except for one key difference. It closes. The DXY only closes on the weekends, which is why you see very few gaps. There's only a couple gaps in here and the whole thing. Oops, didn't mean to move that. Whereas the CXY, look how many gaps there are. And this is actually one of the ones with fewer gaps. A lot of them have a lot more than this one, the other XY pairs, or non-pairs, they're indices. So with the Canadian dollar index, again, for our trade, if you are in that UCAD trade, if UCAD is going to go down, we want the US dollar to go down and the Canadian dollar to go up. That would be ideal to have both of those happen. So for the Canadian dollar, one thing I'm noticing this looks like a PRP to me, just based off of how many wicks there are there. We see the body right there of that candle, this green one, and the red one actually. They finished right there. Let's see if there's any more hits on this line, just to make sure this is a valid price reversal point. So we see a couple more body hits there and there, a wick hit there, another wick hit. Wow, that's a really clean hit right there. So this would be definitely a valid price reversal point. Let's go back up to modern data. So that just happened pretty recently, and I would be pretty surprised if price broke below here as well. So for this one, you wouldn't necessarily want this line to be your alert. You'd want to have it just a little bit lower, maybe like there, just a couple cents lower, and you can add an alert for that one. And this would be this one. You could say something like check UCAD. So you could have that one on there as well. That would be pretty helpful, just to know of when you maybe should start to panic. So who knows why we don't say UC for UCAD? Some people say that, and it's fine. It's not a big deal. Who knows why we don't say UC? Yes, that is correct. So USD CHF is UC. Exactly. Both Bert and Kevin, you're both right. So for UC, a lot of people get them mixed up, and I've even heard Ken say it a couple times. And all it is the CHF, or the Swiss franc, is more important financially to the financial world than the Canadian dollar is. So it always has precedence over that, such as, I don't know if there's a Uzbekistan dollar or something. I don't know what they have. I don't know if they have anything. But even if their currency starts with the letter U, we would never say E for euro or something. We would never say that. It would only be for the US dollar. The US dollar is the only U, the euro is the only E, the CHF is the only C, things like that. So it's always the biggest one in terms of the financial world. So actually, it's kind of interesting we pulled this up. USD CHF if you look at this, they're almost exactly equal in value. That's really interesting. Because right here, oh, I got that a little off. I want to get it exact. There we go. So right there, it's 1 for 1. And it's been toying with that level for a while. It looks like it keeps like hitting it, breaking it for a little bit, and then come back down. And does that quite a few times now. And it seems like it's indecisive of what it wants to do. What it wants to do. So looking at UC, we can have the extended trend line with the magnet tool. Cannot get this bottom. There we go. And this one, I know it's hard to see because of blue lines. It's probably really irritating. Let's correct this. It's a little off. And then that one's perfect. Nice. So this would be the baseline for UC on the bottom. Where would be, oh, what the heck? What is this? That looks so weird. So let's see, where do we have a top trend line as well? Well, that was really, we can use that point as well. And this one's not going to be as powerful as this baseline here. So that is an indication in itself. I cannot get this. Come on, Magnet tool. There you go. Nice. And then how is this hit? So this one actually is a little bit better. So we're actually going to use that. Oh. There we go. I like to be very precise if you can't tell. So what's kind of interesting is look how closely the crossing point is to the dollar mark, and the crossing point is slightly above. Some people would say it's an indication. I honestly, I don't have enough experience to say which way myself, but I have heard people say that, you know, if there's a very strong point, important level, and a price is above or below that level, sometimes that's telling which direction it'll go. I don't have enough experience to say that for a fact, but that is something to take note of. So also, like I was just saying, this point here, this top line is not as powerful as this bottom line. This bottom line is much more powerful because these are much cleaner hits. While this, on the other hand, is kind of like, do you use this one or do you use this one? It's kind of hard to tell. This was very recent. So currently, this bottom line is showing a lot more strength than this top line. The maximum amount of time, which it won't be this long, it'll be less than this amount of time, is that, why doesn't it have the time frame? It's weird. Okay, so more than 177 days. For some reason, when it gets much higher than that, the day counter goes away. I guess that's too far in the future to call off. But basically within, I would say by March at the latest, we should see it break one of these two levels. I'd be surprised if it really lasted till May. That'd be pretty long. It'd really get down to it. It'd be going back and forth really quickly. Unlikely to happen. So overall, I would say it's likely to bounce upwards. UC in the past has been That's so weird. Look at that. Look at these weird dots right here. That's really different, especially for a major currency pair. Yeah, so there's a hammer there on the day, but I mean, look at that. That's beautiful. If you saw this and didn't take this trade, I don't know what you were thinking. That's too perfect. If you saw this, of course. I didn't see this myself, but look at that. That is really nice there. So let's go back to wow. The Japanese trading style seems to work really well with this pair in particular. Look at all these highs, almost all. This one doesn't really have it. I mean, every single low I was seeing, almost, with a couple exceptions. That's something to take note of. I didn't realize it was that powerful with this chart. And look at these. Yeah. Because if you, for example, if you caught that one, within just a couple of days on a major currency pair, you could be up 300 pips, and that'd be such an easy trade. That's it gapped up and had the near perfect doji. That's textbook right there. Okay, let's look at another pair. Let's actually look at gold. XAUUSD. Again, with these Japanese trading style, this is why dojis they just work. Where are all these video recordings? That's actually a really good point. I wanna give to all you guys. Kind of, we'll look at gold in just a second. So if you go on to YouTube, it's pretty easy to find. You can just type in my name. I bet you can just type in my name even. Yeah, that's all you have to type in. So you just click on me, and I've been putting up the last couple recordings here. I'll probably upload this this session as well. But if you'd like, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat too. So okay, let's go back to gold. With the doji, let's turn off magnet tool, because whenever you're drawing, you almost always don't want to have the magnet tool on. Otherwise, it'll clip to certain levels, so it looks really ugly. It looks something like that, and I don't like that. I like to have a little bit of space above and below the actual candlestick, like that, so you can see the entire thing. So pointing out this doji here, let's double check it. Is the bottom wick taller, longer than the top wick? That's important. The top wick is 30.6, and then you take off one. I don't know if you knew that for gold. On most brokers, at least, most brokers adjust. So then, and then 35.3. So we're good there. Let's see. Trying to see if I can see. Oh, let's look at the normal bottom trend line here. So turn magnet tool back on. So this would be considered the most recent low, but if we looked at it, what it was before that happened, we would see that it very nicely, no bodies finished below below there, at least on the daily chart. Let's look on a different time frame. So on the 4 hour, initially it did respect it. Even bounce off the line a little bit there. But we do see that eventually with a hammer, interestingly enough, it did finish below there as well. And then one last thing I want to note is on the current candle. Now it has 44 minutes left to form, but that is something to note. That is a potential double top, and especially if it finishes like it is now. Again, it has 44 minutes. Definitely do not trade right now. If it doesn't, yeah, you at least want to wait for it to finish. But if it does finish similar to this as a doji from a large green candle with a double top, that would be something you can consider. And that would go with what we're saying we think is going to happen with the DXY with an immediate upswing. That's not going to be necessarily very long. Double tops don't tend to be super long. They can be, but it just depends. This one I don't see it, especially because the only reason that a double top would be super long term is if it's either an actual high or an actual low, and we see that very recently relative to the chart length. This is a 4-hour chart, not that long ago, not that many candles ago. We see that price did in fact be at that point already. Also, this isn't a particularly strong PRP. We do see some bodies in here. Not really anything great right there. So this isn't something I see being a long term, even if it does go down from here. This could be maybe even an intraday trade, something of that nature. Again, I don't intraday trade anymore. I don't really recommend anyone does either. But if that's something that you're looking for, you might want to investigate this a little further. So 13 minutes left in the session. Is there anything anyone wants me to go over? Anything you want me to reiterate? Any charts of any kind? Indices? Okay, we can try and look at. So we have AUD, USD, EU, and Taco. So let's try and get all those in if we can. Okay, so AU. Large time frame. Okay. Wow, I have a lot of lines everywhere. That looks crazy. So AU in the large time frame, the biggest thing I noticed right away.
Thank you, sir. How's it going? You too now.
Is this right here? I've made it to one. It's so annoying. Okay. This is an extremely strong dragonfly because the bottom of the wick. I mean, how many months has it been since there was a candle that went that low? Just look. From this point, $989 days. That's crazy. So, and it finished as a dragonfly. So, because of that long of a time frame, that perfect of a candlestick, that's really extremely powerful. And we definitely should see
November 30th watching
a long-term upswing on that. I think someone's mic is on. I heard someone say something. Can you show us one of your recent trades? It shows. Yeah, so we looked at the UCAD already. That's the only trade I'm currently in right now on the sell on UCAD. So for AUDUSD overall, maybe look for another entry. I don't know where. I don't see anything. Nothing's really popping out to say this is a good entry for it. If you can find a good buy entry on AU, that would confer with our UCAD trade as well. So I want to try and get to all these pairs. We can, if we have time, we can look at UCAD again at the end, but I know that we have to look at EU and Taco still. So let's go ahead and look at EU.
Can I get in UCAD?
UCAD, not right now. I wouldn't get in currently.
Yeah, I'm in UCAD right now too, and I'm looking. I have a sell limit at the 618 of the most recent swing. That would be a good place to look for entry on it.
Yeah, that'd be good to have. I guess I can look at it really, really quickly, and we can look at UCAD. So, if you want to, get the horizontal tool, put it just below the 618, right click it, add alert, and then on the typing say look for sell on UCAD, and then have it, if you have a premium account, I would recommend giving a text to yourself so you can look at it right away. If not, at least do the email option. So for Euro, I don't look at Euro that often. That's why it's a blank chart. Euro is a pair that usually newer traders like to trade. There's very few advanced traders that trade Euro because it likes to move a little bit randomly. It kind of controls the rest of the market, and because of that, you have to more predict the price rather than being able to react to another price, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense for you guys. So at least on the daily time frame, we saw that it made a new low. I mean, there's no wicks on those candles. That's kind of weird. There's practically no wicks, at least. But I would rather see something like this before an actual a buying opportunity. And right now, I just don't see anything on Euro. I wouldn't recommend trading it. It's not near any Fibonacci levels. It's not near any PRPs that I'm seeing other than this one. It might bounce off here. We can mark that up. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's not even that powerful. I only see three little hits here, and they're every single one of them is a support, rather than some of them being resistance, at least in relatively recent data, the last couple of years. So maybe look for a buy around this area, but I wouldn't recommend it. So let's look at Taco. If you don't know what Taco is, it's USD MXN. It's the peso versus the dollar. So lately, it's just had an upswing. You remember from calculus class, you took calculus, then you'd see that there might be the point. Oh wait, I was gonna sell and got stopped out. You got stopped out of EU or which pair of Taco? Taco, okay. You're in a sell. So overall, I see a little bit more of a curve here, a pretty nice curve actually. So I wouldn't recommend getting to the sell on this one, long term at least. Again, we're on the daily time frame, but it's good to start wide, and then I'll zoom in a little more in just a second. So far, we can see this might be a flag. This would be the pull, and then we'd see some movement that way. And because of that, then I could see this potentially being good for the sell. What were you looking for when you got into the sell? the downtrend on the 1 hour. Let's go ahead and work our way down. So let's first start off on the 4 hour. Let's go down a little bit slower, not immediately to the 1 hour yet. So on this one, on this time frame, it becomes a little more clear. This long-term trend line, it hasn't quite hit yet, and because of that, it looks to me like it's getting ready to break it. Let's see what a little bit more recent price data has to say about that. Let's go on to the 1 hour. So you see again this weird hammer at the bottom that was somehow powerful. Again, peso versus the dollar, not a major nor a minor currency pair. It is an exotic pair. It is one that you want to use less than proper risk management for if you're following those rules. Overall, it doesn't seem to be ready for much. I would be looking for the buy on this one though, at least for now. From what I'm seeing on the 3 charts, the 3 time frames that we've looked at. So long term, oh, there's a lower one. So if we mark this up from, I think that's the relative, oh, hold on, there's an even lower one. Let's look at super long term. Since August, if we look here, does this look like it could be the top? That's where I like to start. Let's use a reverse future fib, I guess I'd call it. I made that name up just now, but let's see if it works out. Hopefully you know what I mean by that. Basically what we're looking for, is there a lot of points like this where price hits and bounces off of the fib levels? So I'm seeing a couple. I see a few that work out. Not a lot. There's some, but not a ton. So let's see if we can use normal future fib. Is there a better spot? Is there a better price level? Let's see. Is this a better price level? I see that one there. There's a good hit right there as well. Obviously that one is perfect. So I like this level a little bit more. Let's go ahead and mark that one and let's keep on moving up the future fib. Where is, I don't know why I couldn't find that. Also, these are hits too. So let's move up the future fib even more. Oops, didn't mean to move that one. Is there another spot that we're seeing? I can see a decent amount here. I see a lot more than the current price, at least. You see the bounce there, all of these along here. Not a ton on the 786, except for very, very recently. Just happened. So potentially, I would see price going up to one of these 2 points here. And that would be, if price does go up just a little bit more, again, that does confer with what we said might happen on the DXY. The price might go up for just a little bit more than it has before coming down again. And of course, the peso is always decreasing in value against the dollar. So you have to give some leeway to that as well. I don't know why this line's here. This is completely useless. Just move it to somewhere where it's more useful.
I think that Mexico is going to raise their interest rates.
They're raising the interest rate?
I saw that in the news. It was like last week, though, so I'm not sure if it's already happened or not. I haven't kept up with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't keep up with Mexican news. Yeah. Again, this is an exotic, not a major nor minor currency pair. I don't even really recommend trading this one at all. But if we do like, okay, how do I say this? So where price is at right now? It has 29 minutes left in the 1 hour candle. Where it is right now, it just bounced off our future Fib level, and there's a few areas before. There's a lot of confirmations, not confirmations, but a lot of areas that it hits other levels, so its future Fib seems to be pretty decent. If this does finish similar to how it is now over the next 30 minutes, then we would want to see price continue up more to this secondary, the top blue level here. So I want to get this all, I'm just going to turn off auto. I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Oops. So I'm gonna have the other level on there as well in the screenshot, but I'm gonna draw an arrow to make it really clear what we're looking for as the main action. And then again, this is all contingent on, it's actually a little lower. This is all contingent on this being a doji basically, or at least we want to see some upward movement and canceling out this previous doji. So overall, it is on the uptrend. That's helpful. I wouldn't recommend getting in now. I would instead look for the sell up here only. So let's go ahead and take a screenshot of this. And then I'm going to go ahead and get off after this. If you have any further questions, please let me know on Slack or on Instagram direct message. Those are the best ways to contact me. I will be doing my session tomorrow, same time, 1:30 Arizona time. And with that being said, I hope you all have a great day and I hope you all learned a lot. Of course, thanks.